So let's begin with today's conference. So we are going to be discussing 4 parts of the passive voice. The first part will be the construction of the passive voice. The second will be use cases in various contexts. And number 3 will be common pitfalls and tips. So that means we will be discussing certain problems we could find with the passive voice. We will also be discussing the negative and interrogative sentences. So let's begin. Let's see. Hi, everybody. So Bernard, he's greeting everyone. Welcome, everyone, to the conference. So now we are going to begin. On va commencer. So the first thing we are looking at is the construction of the passive voice. So generally, when we begin with the passive voice, we start with the subject. Now, the subject we talk about is I, you, he, she, it, we, you, and they. And then we use an auxiliary verb. An auxiliary verb is a helper verb. It helps the verb that follows. And our auxiliary verb in the passive voice is the verb to be. So, le verbe être. We then add the past participle, le participe passé. Okay? Here we have some examples. The cake was baked by Mary. Le gâteau a été cuit par Marie. The novel was written by the famous author. Le roman a été écrit par le célèbre auteur. The bridge was constructed last year. Le pont a été construit l'année dernière. So it is important to remember. The first thing we need to do, and I'll put it in the chat for you, is identify the tense. So you first have to decide. In order to create the passive voice, we need to decide what tense is our original sentence. So, the cake was baked by Mary. C'est peut-être pas le début de la phrase. It's maybe not the first sentence we have. So I'm going to give you an example. I'll put it in the chat for you. Mary bakes a cake. So if this is your sentence, je vais mettre comme ça. Mary bakes a cake. If that is your sentence and I would like you to change it into the passive voice, that is the active voice. Why is it the active voice? It is the active voice. Okay, no problem, Pauline. Oui, désolé. En fait, c'est niveau A1 à A2. So, thank you, Pauline.
Yes, thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye. So, when we are talking about Mary bakes a cake, that is the passive, that is the active voice. Why is it the active voice? It's the active voice because Mary is doing the action. It's Mary who bakes. So Mary bakes a cake. Now I need to change this sentence into the passive voice. So the first thing I do is as I said, I identify the tense. The tense is present. So I know that my auxiliary verb needs to be in the present. Très bien. So that's the first step. The second step, I need to look at my verb, bakes. And I need to find the participe passé, the past participle for my verb. So it would be bakes, c'est présent. Participe passé, the past participle is baked. So let's start our construction. We always start with the subject. The subject is the cake. So the cake. I then use my verb. Because it's in present tense, I keep is. The cake is. So that's my auxiliary. I then decided that the past participle is baked. Okay, so then the cake is baked by Mary. And that is how I change the voice from active to passive. It will always depend on the tense. So here we have 3 examples. Let's see if we can find more. When do we use the passive voice? So, we use the passive voice in academic writing. So it is favored for its objective tone, ideal for conveying ideas without emphasizing individuals. So, c'est privilégié pour son ton objectif, idéal pour faire passer des idées sans mettre en avant les personnes. So, if you would like to discuss something without saying who said it, who did it, you can use the passive voice. It can also be used in scientific writing. For example, it enhances the objectivity and impersonality, directing attention to the results and methodologies. So, ça renforce l'objectif et l'impersonnalité en attirant l'attention sur les résultats et les méthodologies. So, as I said, the passive voice is always emphasizing the receiver of the action. For example, the chef prepared the meal. So in active voice, we are emphasizing the chef. C'est le chef qui est important. But with passive voice, the meal was prepared by the chef. Maintenant, vous pouvez voir, you can see that it is the meal that is important, not the chef. So our focus is the subject en anglais. We also use it when the doer is unknown or unimportant. Par exemple, someone stole my wallet. The passive voice, my wallet was stolen. So it is not important who stole the wallet. It is important that my wallet was stolen. We also use the passive voice in business or professional communication. For example, so passive voice is sometimes used to soften the impact of negative information or to avoid assigning blame explicitly. So again, it is used when we would like to talk about something in general, but we do not want to direct it at someone. It's also used in instructions and procedures. The active voice says, you should mix the ingredients thoroughly. The passive voice says, the ingredients should be mixed thoroughly. So we can see, on peut voir que il n'y a pas le sujet. C'est pas une personne. It's not a person. So that means we shift the focus. The focus is now the ingredients. So that is why the passive voice is important, because the passive voice talks about a thing, not a person. And we use the passive voice when the focus is on the result. For example, the active voice says, the artist painted a beautiful landscape. The passive voice says, a beautiful landscape was painted by the artist. So we can see the importance is the beautiful landscape, not the artist. So we have some common pitfalls and tips on how we can use the passive voice. So the passive voice avoids ambiguity and it helps to maintain clarity and directness because you know what you are speaking about. Tips for effective use: we need to be intentional and we need to balance the passive and the active constructions for clear and powerful communication. Okay. So sometimes it's good to change to active voice. Why do I change to active? We change to active when you want someone to know who the subject is. Mary bakes the cake. So Mary is important. But if I want to change to passive voice, if Mary is not important, then I say the cake is baked by Mary because the importance is the cake. So let's look at some other examples. So if the passive is the original sentence, which says the new policy was implemented by the management. What is important? The new policy is important. But if I want to use active voice, it will say the management implemented the new policy because I want to know who implemented the new policy, the management. So it depends on what do you want to say. Is the person important or is the object important? Okay, let's look at another example if there is. Okay, so we've got two sentences. The original, the decision was made by the committee. So the decision is important. The committee made the decision. So there we can see the focus is on the committee. So we ask ourselves the first question, where is the focus? We need to know, where is the focus? Do I want it to be on the person who is doing the action or the object that we are talking about? Okay, so where is the focus? That's the first thing. As I said, so the two things for a petit résumé, un petit peu de révision aussi. The first thing was find the tense. What tense am I speaking in? And then the second is where is the focus? So that I can know if I need to use passive voice or active voice. Okay, so as we said, passive voice or active voice, it avoids ambiguity. So toutes les choses sont claires. Everything is clear. The report was read by John and it was discussed. Très bien. John read the report and the team discussed it. Donc, that shows that in the first sentence, the report was read. C'est le voix passive. The report is important. Le deuxième, John read the report. So now it is John that is the focus. He is important. So where do we want our importance to be? The subject or the object? Il faut choisir. Okay, so let's look at an example of the active and the passive voice. The cat drank the milk. Le chat a bu le lait. The milk was drunk. Le lait a été bu. Okay, so there are different constructions. But if I'm starting in the present, I need to have the present for the verb to be on the other side. If I'm starting with the verb or passé simple, I need to have the passé simple for the verb to be on the other side. I will write some examples. So for example, let's start. On va utiliser le chat. Okay? The cat drinks the milk. C'est le premier exemple. The cat drinks the milk. Ça, c'est présente. That shows. Ça montre que. L'autre côté, j'ai besoin d'être au présent. I need to be in the present tense. So the first thing I do is I think of être in the present for the cat. Le troisième personne singulier. So that is the cat is. D'accord? So when we say the cat drinks the milk, we focus on the milk as the subject. On dit the milk is drunk by the cat. The milk is drunk, excusez-moi, je vais faire une petite erreur. The milk is drunk by the cat. I have le participe passé and I've got the verb to be, le auxiliaire. If it was the past, the cat drank the milk, c'est le passé simple, donc j'ai besoin le passé simple l'autre côté. The cat drank the milk. The milk was drunk by the cat. D'accord? Parfois, j'ai pas besoin de l'agent. I don't need the cat because the most important part is the milk. On va regarder une autre phrase. Donc, negative sentences. What do I do in negative sentences? The structure remains similar with the auxiliary verb to be and the past participle. So, negative sentences. If I have an affirmative, it says the assignment was completed on time. Donc, on a was. So we have was. So that shows it's the past simple, le passé simple. So the passive voice will also be past simple avec le participe passé. We start with the assignment was completed on time. But I need my negative. I need la négation. The assignment was not completed on time. Let's look at if there is another example. No, il n'y a pas. So now we are going to move on to interrogative sentences. What happens when there is an interrogative? The project was finished last week. So comme je disais, we've got was, c'est le passé simple. So on the other side, the passive voice, the verb to be must be passé simple aussi. It has to be the past simple. The project was finished last week. Okay. Now I need to ask the question. Je dois poser des questions. Was the project finished last week? So it is now a question because I put my verb in the beginning and then I put the subject. On fait le méthode inversion. We do the inversion to ask a question. Okay. We have another example. A new policy will be implemented soon. Ah, so ça c'est le voix passive. That is the passive voice. So let's start. Let's think. What is the active voice? What is the active voice? They said a new policy will be implemented soon. So I can say the boss will implement a new policy soon. So that is the active voice. The boss will implement a new policy soon. Voix passive, a new policy will be implemented soon. I can add by the boss. So what will my question be? Will a new policy be implemented soon? The most important thing is that we can start in active voice, we can take the sentence to passive voice, and we can take it to a question. So if we can do those three things, that means we understand how to take a sentence from the passive to active and active to passive voice. Donc. So, if you would like, you can write in the chat an example using the passive voice structure. Include the affirmative, negative, and interrogative version. So I'll start. If I think about a sentence, I can say, the boy eats the cake. Donc, what is the first thing we do? The boy eats the cake. That is active voice. What is my object? My object is the cake. So that means I'm going to start my sentence with the cake. Eats is the present tense. Donc, so I need my verb to be in the present tense. So the cake is. Très bien. Now I see my verb is eat. But if I think about the conjugation of the verb eat, the boy eats. Yesterday, the boy ate. Ah, so c'est le troisième groupe. que j'ai besoin. I need the third group. The cake is eaten. And now I need my agent. The cake is eaten by the boy. Exactly. Thank you so much, Remy. That's exactly how we use it. Remember that if I change my tense, if I say, the boy ate the cake, how will it change? So, Remy, Christine, can you give us an example? Virginie, in the chat, how will it change? Because now ate is the passé simple. Lovely. The cake was eaten by the boy. Beautiful. And let's try one more. The boy is eating the cake. Ça, c'est le present continu. How will it change? How will it change? Because now we have the present continuous. Is being eaten. Wonderful. So now we know what we need. The cake is being eaten. Thank you, Jessica. Beautiful, guys. This is really wonderful. So now we know what do we need to take it from the passive voice, the active voice, into the passive voice and back. So now we are going to try the inverse. If I said the was being by the, if I give you the sentence, the food was being eaten by the family. What is my active voice? What is my active voice sentence? Lovely. The family was eating the food. Beautiful. Thank you so much, guys. These responses are amazing. So, in conclusion, the passive voice is a strategic tool, enhancing clarity and formality. Embrace its subtleties, use it intentionally, and navigate the balance between active and passive constructions. So, just to close the conference, I will tell you, if you ever want the focus to be on the object and not the speaker, you use the passive voice. If you want the focus to be on the speaker, the person who is doing the action, then you use the active voice. So this is a good way to decide, what do I want? What do I want to achieve in this sentence? So thank you everyone for watching the conference. I would like to ask, are there any questions or would you like to make any comments? Please feel free to unmute your microphones and you are more than welcome to share with the group. So, no? Is everyone happy? Everyone understands? Remy?
Yes, I think everybody is happy with your lesson.
Thank you. I'm grateful. So
I'm happy for
for
in my
your
opinion.
Thank you, Remy. Thank you so much for sharing. And thank you, Jacqueline. Thank you, everyone. So, as I said, this conference will be sent to you. Will be sent? It's the passive voice. The conference will be sent to you via email. And I would like to thank everybody for joining us. And I really hope that it is a lot clearer now how to use the passive and the active voice. I hope to see everybody next week for a new conference. So thank you, everybody, and have a beautiful weekend. Bye-bye.